Okay, it is 8 o'clock, and I'd like to call this meeting, a regular council meeting, to order with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Steve Horniak, the President of Council, is absent tonight. Council, is there any objection to having Mr. Reeves sit in as President Pro Tem? Hearing none, Mr. Reeves, the chair is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With that being said, Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll call of council?
Mrs. Ackerman, Mr. Drake,
Here.
Mr. Horniak, Mrs. Paula,
Here.
Mr. Reeves,
Here.
Mr. Salander,
Here.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you. I know that Mr. Horniak and Ms. Ackerman had also contacted about their not being available for tonight. So could we get a motion to excuse both of those from tonight's meeting?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Salander.
I'd like to make a motion to excuse him from tonight's meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Mr. Salinger and second by Mr. Wallensack. So they are excused at tonight's meeting. Next, we need to get an approval of the minutes from February 12th, 2024 regular council meeting and the February 19th, 2024 committee of the whole meeting.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Salander.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 12th regular council meeting and the February 19th committee of the whole meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Salander.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. The minutes have been approved. Next up will be persons of delegation that have signed in to speak. At this time, is anybody here that's in the audience that didn't get a chance to sign in that would like to speak? If so, please, you may come up here and sign in. Okay, up first is Brenda Gift. Brenda, if you would please give your name and address for the record.
Good evening. I am Brenda Gift. My address is 490 North Wind Road, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. So I brought 3 questions tonight. I'll start with number 1. Our neighbors across the street have received letters urging them to consider selling and relocating to make way for new industry. The neighbors have shared that they've been told that our homes, my home on the east side of North Wind Road, is in phase 2. Greg V on your plan. How do you pronounce Greg's last name? Vrieslar is the one that personally signed those as project manager, but he's like president of West Erie, told them that we would be in phase 2. What has that involved? Should I stop improving my property like my husband wants to do concrete in the yard? Should we be stopping that? Do you guys have plans with the OEDF to also loop us in, even though this isn't in a master plan? We had no knowledge when we bought. I'd like to be told tonight. Is this our future? Number 2, who on council or with the city of Oregon have signed non-disclosure agreements as part of this project? And I would like those names. Number 3, how did you come to the decision to hire West Erie? It's in here, page 4 or 5 maybe. The same company sending letters being hired to complete appraisals and real estate acquisitions for the city of Oregon. Did you go through a bidding process? And does the president of that company, actually handling all personnel, I looked on the website, he does all kinds of stuff. Does his involvement and part of your planning commission concern you at all? So I'm going to sit down and you can give me those answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Major? Mr. Major?
You can go first and
Okay.
we'll both.
No
answer
problem.
those questions.
Mr. Major, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you for coming here and expressing all the concerns. I wanted to point out that it's not the city of Oregon that is driving this. It is actually the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. They're a separate entity. We do work closely with them, but they do work independently and without autonomy. So I will tell you that in years past, probably over the past 20 years, this would have been when Dean Monsky was in that role and when Gary Thompson was in that role. And this is from their mouths to my ears, that they have reached out to homeowners in that area that live around the industrial park for many years and knocked on the doors and said, hey, are you interested in selling now? Today's a different world. The approach from the OEDF was to send letters out through a third party just to kind of gauge the same interest. Is there any interest of any of the homeowners in that industrial park that would be interested in moving? And that's the thought process from the OEDF. So they are the ones that are driving this, not the city of Oregon. So if anybody has questions or has received a letter, I do believe that there are 2 meetings scheduled for this week. The dates and times, locations should be in the letter. So if anybody, and it is a private meeting for those individuals that did receive letters, so that they respect their privacy. I will say that I am one staff member that did sign a non-disclosure agreement. I don't know of any other staff members at this time that have signed them, but there will be others. They came in this week. So in other words, today. So we did receive non-disclosure agreements, and I have signed one, and other staff members will be signing them at that time. So there is a lead. I will mention to everybody too that for the little over a year that I've been here, there have been leads in this industrial park. And in fact, there have been 16 leads since I've been here. So this is just one more lead that's being worked on. All of them have been industrial in nature. It is zoned as industrial land. We went through a process of rezoning the land. As you were aware, I believe you were here.
You zoned it as advanced manufacturing, if I recall, so that the city can control like the beauty for the residents and
Yep.
make it look like a great space. And something like Dana maybe would move in. That's what we were all told when we were here.
Yep.
I think we're hearing a different story now. I know it's private, I know, but if they're talking about us as phase 2, and the city is certainly in planning, and Greg V, who's sending out the letter and he's talking to people, is in planning, I can't imagine that you guys aren't all talking about this also, unless like Greg's got it as a secret, but I want to know what's in phase 2.
There is no phase 2. None that we're aware of. I don't know what he's talking about. If there was a consideration for that side, he might have referred to it. It would be a phase 2. There is no consideration for the east side of Wynn Road. So there is no phase
Okay.
2.
At least that we're aware of.
Yes.
Okay. Good to know. And then my, the last one, hiring Erie West to do work for the city, to do real estate acquisitions and appraisals. You guys concerned about a conflict at all?
If I may, Mr. President.
Mr. Major.
Again, this is not the city. This is the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. So
It is on page 4 of 5, authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with West Erie Realty Solutions to provide professional right-of-way appraisal and real estate acquisition services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency. It sounds like they're kind of spread all over the place, so.
So let me ask Mr. Roman
Well,
to answer the.
Let me go first. And Mr. Roman prepared that in case we choose to exercise that option, just like we have other vendors here. If you look on today's a good example of that. We use a lot of vendors to do different professional services as needed basis. So if it does come up, we have that agreement in place so that we can use that provider of a professional
But
service.
this is
But-
the only one tonight on the, for the
If I
real
could-
estate, right?
And so these ordinances were presented last week and they are annual purchase order agreements. And what they are is they are mainly to serve the public service department, the engineering department, public right-of-way projects, water lines, storm sewer. If there's ever a need where we need an easement, where we didn't plan on, let's say we make a change on a water line alignment, we need an easement. It's nice to have a PO available so that we can hire someone to do that appraisal right away. What I presented last week is there's several ordinances involving technical consultants that we use every year. West Erie is one of them. There are many labs that are included in that group. Solomon Diving, they do under inspections. Belgium Owner, CT Consultants, TTL, DGL is a traffic engineering company. QCI, they do quality control inspection. All of these companies do technical work for us throughout the year, and they're only used as needed, as you had read. But they are strictly for public service projects or to assist the wastewater plant or the water treatment plant. So I get your concerns, but the ordinances that were presented last week that are up for tonight are annual contracts for companies where we use them for technical services throughout the year.
Are any of those other companies, are there people on those other companies that sit on any board or commission with the city of Oregon? In any other?
Yeah, not that I'm aware of, no.
Okay, so that's the only one, West Erie.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Major?
Thank you, Mr. President. One thing I did want to say about West Erie and understand that Greg Vriesler is on the Planning Commission. But West Erie, even though they're based out of downtown Toledo, I believe the majority of the people that work for West Erie are Oregon residents. So they're all people that are from Oregon and graduated from Clay or Stritch. And so I can't think of anybody better to provide those services than somebody that has stake in the community that actually live close to that area as well. So that's,
I'm sorry, we cannot hear you. You'd have to come up to the
so
microphone.
that's, Mr. President, that's all I had to say. I just wanted to point out that most of the employees that work for West Erie are Oregon residents.
I did research and see that, but nobody else would have stake in planning and decisions and firsthand knowledge either, unless they sat on any kind of committee. So that was it. I just wanted to clarify it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Parker? Please state your name and address for the record, please.
Tony Parker, 505 North Wind Road. A lot of my questions were just answered by Brenda. I'm just a little concerned with somebody that's on the planning committee making my decisions. You know, it seems to me that that's both sides. He told me when I was talking to him about the realtor and selling and doing all this stuff, he was explaining everything. And he also told me that he's on the plan committee. So to me, it sounds like he's making decisions on both sides of the board, which I don't really think is right. He also, I told him, I said, when these appraisals come back, he said they're using one company, which I understand. But I said, what if I don't like that? What my house comes back at, do I have any recourse? And he says, you can do whatever you want, but we're only going to use the one that I suggest. We're not going to say, okay, you're going to use Steingraver and Associates, and we're using Martin and Wood. And if there are conflicts, it's just too bad. And he told me he wanted this handled done in 2 months, but nobody knows anything about what's going on. I called quite a few of you guys that I know and asked, what's going on? And my council people that represent my voice, that I vote for my voice, know nothing. They all say, well, I'm going over there right now and find out. To me, that's not right. You know, and I understand the part about, you know, if too many people get their fingers in it, something's gonna happen. But when it's close enough to send me a letter to want my property in 2 months, my council people that represent me should know. They should know something. I'd like to know what's going back there because, hey, maybe I just might want to stay there. I don't care what goes back there, but that should be my decision. Greg seems to be pushing this to get this done real fast. You know, I've been there a long time. I've been through when North Star Steel tried to come. You know, and that's what blew that thing from what I understand is they'd made deals with all the homeowners, different deals and had everybody talking and kind of screwed that whole deal up. You know, I'm not against what's happening. I know I'm in an industrial zone and I understand all of that. I've been there when that was just farmland, you know, and the only thing there was the refinery. And so I've been there a long time and I understand development and things got to happen. I feel like it's getting pushed real fast and they don't want to tell us what's going on. You know, I mean, to push this in 2 months, you know, it says right on the bottom of the letter, he goes, I want it done. When I called to have my house appraised, they wanted to come do it Saturday morning. They wanted to do it that fast. You know, we want to get these done. So I mean, I'm just, you know, my questions are like Brenda's and I'd like to kind of know what, I mean, you don't have to tell me who it is or what, you know, just what's going to be back there. Is it going to be smokestacks? Is it going to be, you know, is it going to be just some big buildings? Is it going to be, you know, who knows what it's going to be? I just, you know, that's my questions, you know, and I just think that the people that are representing me shouldn't be sitting on the board. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Anybody from the administration?
Mr.
Mr. Mayor?
I'd like to try to answer that the best I can. And Tony, I know you were around each of the zoning times that we came in. Worthington Steel that was coming before chose to join up with the organization out west of here. That's why they didn't end up coming here. And I think North Star Steel was who they hooked up with. But it was similar in nature, but what we had heard when the zoning change was made to the property directly behind you was people thought, hey, if you're building something right in my backyard, we think you have an obligation to maybe buy us out because we might not want to live there. So we wanted to exercise that right to buy the people out. And because of how this company chooses to what they want to spend in buyouts, they might be limited to whether they'll choose to do that. So he's trying to come up with numbers that that he can get someone to say okay on. And so putting something together fairly quickly, if this even comes to fruition in our city, would dictate whether or not those options would even be exercised. If it is a fairly large organization that's looking at the property right now, what all they do, they don't disclose, but they would have to live within the zoning requirements that are there right now, which is advanced manufacturing. Before they could do anything other than that, if it required additional zoning, they would have to come before this body, then go to the planning commission and back to this body up here. So as long as they think they're operating within the zoning that exists, they really don't have to disclose what they're doing. And they haven't done a lot of that as of yet. But they were interested in a very large parcel. And so we thought that this was an opportunity that we could possibly take into consideration of purchasing those properties that back up directly to those. And those are all the people that got those letters. So council people, as well as myself, were not informed about what is actually happening here, but we knew kind of the size of the operation was a larger versus a smaller industrial proposal. And the smaller ones wouldn't come in and necessarily buy other properties because they couldn't afford to.
Mr. Major, real quick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to get back to about your question about Greg Vrieslar and being on the Planning Commission, and also, Planning Commission is voluntary. His day job is West Erie, so, and his involvement with the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. If there is a true conflict of interest with his involvement, then he would have to abstain from any votes and discussing or deliberating even on any of the matters. So he would. Yep.
Mrs. Giff?
Yeah, just one more comment. I didn't realize with the OEDF being a separate entity, in your last statement, Mayor, I heard a lot of we's. We decided, we did this. It certainly doesn't sound like there's separation there. And I'm going to look at past votes that Greg V made, because looking ahead, saying he'd certainly have to recuse himself, what past votes or participation did he have in changing that to advanced manufacturing and changing zoning of that area and planning and doing any of it? Because it certainly all comes into consideration. This was planned. I'm hearing we decided we should do this. I'm sure you can play the recording later and hear all the we's again. This is not a separation. You guys are all like linked. And we need you to know that we see it. And
Of course, we're
yeah.
linked. We would not deny that. We're definitely, if it wasn't for the city of Oregon, the Oregon Economic Development Foundation wouldn't exist.
Thank you. That's,
Mr. President,
Mr. Drake?
I just want to touch back, and I don't know if Joel can answer this or Ms. Pepora. Kind of what Mr. Parker said this weekend. I ran into at least 6 to 8 people that were talking about this letter and this and that. And I do understand, I've heard it before at meetings, you can't just disclose what's going to come in for competition purposes and whatever. But is there any way we could get as council people? I don't know if some of you on council might have got a letter. I know I didn't. But is there a way you could send like a generic letter out just stating, hey, look, there's a business that's really serious about moving in. We're sending out letters to the homeowners. So when somebody walks up to you and asks you, and you look like a deer in the headlights and a train coming at you, it's like, how do you answer that? So those were the calls I got. I mean, is there some way they could just write up something saying, hey, the people from Corduroy Road to Bay Shore Road, we're going to give them letters all on the west side or east side, whatever. Hell, I still haven't even read it, so I don't even know what it says.
It would make it a lot easier on me or us if you could just give us a generic, yeah, there is something going on, we can't disclose it right now, you know, whatever. I mean, but to me, it just seems like there's so much secretive things going on all the time. It might affect none of you guys, but it affects us, the voters. You know, and I vote you people in for my voice.
Yep.
And then every time we call, I mean, nobody seems to know anything about anything.
Mr. President.
And if you just had, yeah, they're working on something, we can't disclose it right now, you know, yeah, that would make me feel a lot better.
Mr. Salander?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, Brenda, thank you and all of you for coming out here and exercising your rights to be heard and to attend as well. But I want to echo Councilman Drake's message as well, that having some information, even I know Mr. Drake isn't on social media, but the letter was posted out there. It was, I think, there wasn't anything in there outside of their addresses on top, which, you know, can be blacked out, what have you, that couldn't be shared with council to at least have an idea of what's being sent out. Because when you do have people approach us and ask us what are these letters about, and having no clue even what the words, you know, what this letters specifically state, makes us look like fools. It makes us look like we're not doing our jobs of representing the people. And so I think it's about time that we start representing the people.
Thank you, Mr. Salander. Anyone else?
I have the letter. Do you guys want me to read it?
But you can.
Okay. The Oregon Economic Development Foundation, OEDF, has retained West Erie Realty Solutions Limited, that's a word tonight, to provide real estate services of several properties near the City of Oregon's Industrial Park. To be clear, these real estate services are voluntary and not necessary for any potential new industrial developments on Blue Herring Drive. However, the OEDF recognizes the likely impacts a potential new development would have on its closest neighbors. The OEDF is offering to provide these services to all properties north of Corduroy, east of Lollendorf, and west of Wynn Road. Our firm is hosting 2 private meetings with property owners to present information on the OEDF's acquisition and relocation program, answer questions, and to provide expectations of potential developments in the industrial park. The first meeting will be held on Tuesday, February 27th at 4 p.m., and the second meeting on February 28th at 6 p.m. Both meetings will be held inside the Oregon Senior Center located at 4350 Navarre Avenue, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. Please RSVP by contacting my cell phone at 419-279-5188 or emailing me at greggv@westerierealty.com. If you're not available for either meeting, we ask for the opportunity to meet with you individually and share the same information presented at the Senior Center. We sincerely appreciate your prompt attention to this matter as the OEDF's offer to purchase is time-sensitive, not open-ended. Sincerely, Greg V., Project Manager, as agent for the Oregon Economic Development Foundation. And then the address.
Thank you. You have anything?
Excuse me, Mr. President.
Mr. Salander.
Just real quick too, I was just thinking, you know, a lot of speculation and a lot of guessing and a lot of, you know, if you saw the Facebook post, you see all these different ideas of what might be coming, may be coming. If we want to disseminate or break down or stop the rumors or the, you know, things like that, information is the way to do that. Information will silence all that. And I think I agree with what you said there too about we don't need to know specifics. I understand NDAs and all that and not doing that, but at least having an idea of what was sent out in the, you know, 30,000 foot look at things so we can at least, so when when our citizens contact the representatives, contact us, we at least have some sort of answers. We don't just say, I don't know, because that just looks horrible on us and also on the city.
Mr. President,
Thank you, Mr. Sandler.
may I?
Mr. Major?
Can I go first? Yeah, please.
Mr. Mayor?
When property zoned a certain way, anybody can approach purchasing that property and does not have to disclose anything to the city, the Economic Development Foundation, or anyone other than the people who own the property to try to purchase it. This is what I gather to be a very big operation that is considering, not actually purchasing property, but considering to locate here. And we certainly marketed our industrial area to the whole world, hoping to get something very productive for the city of Oregon that fits within the zoning requirements that we have placed on that property. So when someone interested comes along and it's very sensitive, anything can steer it away from here. My guess is there was hundreds of sites looked at just from what I've experienced before and slowly limited down to the finalists. We may be one of the finalists, and for them to disclose information is solely at at their desires. So they initially went to Jobs Ohio through the state of Ohio to come look at sites in Ohio, as well as they did other states. And we were fortunate enough to be considered. And the Jobs Ohio has kind of led this charge, and they're very cautious at how they disclose information. I myself am not permitted to be in a meeting with them. That's just one of their rules. I know very little about the operation other than when it fits in the zoning and different things that they may request from the city as for services, water, sewer, storm sewer, just kind of stuff like that. So when they go, that the Jobs Ohio then goes to the Economic Development Foundation, even though you may think that we have a right to it, we only have a right to what the people that are looking to purchase the property wanted to disclose until the time they come to ask for additional zoning or additional things that they don't currently have, which they haven't done yet. So none of us know a great deal about it, but we know some of the things that they require, and we meet, my guess is we've met the requirements of what the city could provide to them. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be considering us as a possibility. So to say we're keeping things secret is not really the case. We're just trying to fill that site. We had people wanted to come in and realtors, industrial realtors wanted to market that site for us. Fortunately, we didn't take them up on that. Otherwise, we'd be paying out additional monies that we didn't need to, because it appears we got people interested right now. So we will try to get everything that we can to the public. This happened very fast. But we'd like to believe that we have our industrial sites as ready as possible, so that if we get something that property is going to develop as industrial, as an industrial site. So we're hoping to get the best we can get, least impact to the area, best impact financially for the city. And that's what we're trying to do. It's a tough balancing act. People say, well, we don't need the industry here. Well, earlier in the meeting, you'll find that we're going to cost another $2.5+ million a year to operate a fire department. We run short sometimes, different years. So yeah, we do need other revenue if we want to keep the city services up. So we got to try to do a balancing act to develop, and we happen to be an industrial-based city. It's what we do well here. Retail is tough for us with the numbers of the population in a 3 to 5 mile radius of our retail area. It's tough for sales. So we have to depend on the industrial businesses to subsidize every one of us. So we're doing the best we can to put when we came up with advanced manufacturing, we do believe that there are large scale buildings, but not smokestack buildings, or very few of those. Stuff that will, for the most part, meet and fit into our advanced manufacturing zoning code. So as long as we're going to develop that area, from what we can gather from the information we have, this is one of the better possibilities we think we could get for that area and develop with the best or the lack of impact to the surrounding area and still be developed. It's not like we're keeping secrets. we're trying to still stay attractive to this particular venture that's looking our way.
Mr. Major.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to address something about the communication piece that was brought up. There's a real tough balance for me. I did sign a non-disclosure agreement, but what that means for everybody else in the room is that this is a requirement of the company. Anybody that participates in conversations with a company, and this is very common, by the way, in economic development world, very common. In fact, when a deal gets real close, companies do, most of them do require, public officials especially to sign non-disclosure agreements. And that's to protect them and their interest and their investment in exploring this as an option. So, and that's a very difficult balance for somebody that has signed a non-disclosure agreement to be able to communicate effectively to everybody. But I do send the weekly updates, and I know that, I believe it was the prior Friday, that all of council did get some information on something that was going on at the industrial park. So, every week I send out an update to city council about what's going on. I did send that out. I did send something out last Friday as well, kind of, Paul, Councilman Drake, to your point, the statement that you talked about. So you have to let me know if that's what you're looking for, or if there's something else that you're
Something
looking
different.
for in terms of communication. But I just wanted to bring up that it's real tough to be able to, hand out certain information. And I did talk to Alec Thompson about communication as well to all of council. And, we had a couple of discussions about that. And, and looking back on it, hindsight's 2020, and he even said himself that, hey, I could have done that, but, he couldn't forecast what was going to happen. So he was just, this is kind of new to him and in his role. I know that his predecessor is his dad. So his dad said that he used to knock on the doors, literally go around and knock on everybody's doors, but he tried the approach of sending letters. So this was a new approach. So it's, it gets a little complicated for me and what I'm saying, especially when there's another organization driving the communication piece. I just wanted to point that out, but and there was at least some information in the weekly update. So that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, please. If you, sir, you need to come up and give your name. I apologize. Your name and address, please, for the record.
Jim Sally, and it's 510 North Wind.
Thank you.
Hey, all I gotta say is, you guys say that there's no secrecy, but I know that the farmer sold the land to City of Toledo behind my place. And I can't believe that nobody here knew what they were gonna do. There was no for sale sign on it, which I know the owner don't have to do that. But I know that they would have to check with you people to see what they could put in there. They're not gonna buy that land and then throw it in. I know it don't have nothing to do with the industrial park right now, but when you're saying no secrecy, I know that somebody on this here had to know what was going on there. They just city didn't spend that money, grants or whatever, to buy that and then say, well, we'll figure out if we can put that in, if the city's gonna let us do that, because it didn't have nothing to do with you guys.
Mr. Major?
It did.
Oh, your choice.
Well, actually, it didn't have anything to do with us. And
Well, you had
That
to-
wasn't a
you had to
real-
change something though, right, Mike?
no, we
You gotta-
didn't. No, we didn't.
So them to put a retention pond in and all the underground, you don't have to change any of the,
That is correct.
And I'm Mr. Sally, and for what I knew, I know City of Toledo has certain obligations with EPA and they need a large reservoir. There's nothing we can do to stop them from buying anybody from buying a piece of land.
right?
So, and as for any objections from the city, it's like, I didn't necessarily want a large reservoir in the middle of our city. But I don't think we could say anything to do to stop it unless they need a zoning change or some other approval, which I don't think they do, so.
as a utility, they do have a right to build that for a utility purpose, and we can't stop.
So you're saying then they could.
We
they
looked
can
into that.
do However they want to do that. then,
we-
if they
we
wanna
looked
put
into
other-
Now, there's a right. It's called a use by right. And they have that. So being that they're serving, other residents, they have the right to that, and they don't get the use by right through the city of Oregon. They get the use by right through the state of Ohio, offers them that right. So we're not in the governing body on that particular use. Now, if they just can't do anything with it, but if they're doing it for the public service, then they can. Just like building a school. A
Mr.
school
President.
doesn't need to rezone something for a school because you need schools in your community. They call that a use by right. The fire station, same thing. We do not have to have zoning for a fire station because we all need a fire station in the city. So it is a use by right. That's just,
It just was funny though, that deal was done before anybody said anything.
and they
about
could
it.
do that. There
But it
wasn't-
seems like, and that to me was kind of secretly. But the only two things I know that was brought out and then everybody bitched about it was the Home Depot that was supposed to go in or wanted to go in
Mhm.
and the battery plant. And when that happened, all hell broke loose. But I'm saying everything else, like I said about that, the deal was cut. I know the city of Toledo can buy the land, but I can't believe that they didn't say, hey, this is what we want to do in Oregon. I mean, it's your city. I can't believe.
Oh, we
that
knew they were, that what their goal was, whether they would go through with it. We didn't know that. But, yeah, we knew why they were buying it. We knew
I
there was
just
nothing
wonder
we
why
could
that
do
was
with.
never- how long ago, Mike, they just didn't decide that in a 6-month period. I just wonder how long anybody even knew about that before, that the city was really pushing to do that and getting their funds.
Yeah, the only way we could have stopped it was buy it before they did. That's-
Anything else from the floor? Brenda, please, Ms. Giff.
So I know you can't tell me what it is. What isn't it? Is it not hazardous waste? Is it not noisy? Is it not smokestacks? What is it not?
We believe it's very close to no smokestacks.
Close.
But they didn't disclose all that, but I think it's fair to say we believe it's,
Will it not increase a bunch of traffic that will cause damage to Wynn Road?
If all I can say is, sorry to cut you off, is that for the homeowners that did receive letters, the 2 meetings are in the next 2 days. And if you get a chance, show up to the meeting if you haven't talked to Greg Friesler yet. But I can't disclose anything at this point, so I can't.
Okay, so we'll just
Mm.
find out from our neighbors.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. We're going to continue on with our meeting if there's nobody else to speak. Mr. Parker? Absolutely.
When Greg talked to me on the phone, he told me that if I didn't feel like coming to the meeting, don't come to the meeting because I just told you everything that you're gonna hear at the meeting.
Mhm.
So he kind of discouraged me, I wasn't really gonna go until all of this, Channel 11 showed up at my house today and brought a lot of this I wouldn't even be here tonight. But they said, so it seems like something's happening, but he did say, I don't know what we're gonna find out at the meeting tomorrow. He told me everything he told me on the phone that you have all heard tonight is what's gonna be said at that meeting. So if there's something new, I don't know, but is there something that's gonna be?
I don't know
Is there
that
gonna be
there's-
something that's gonna be said tomorrow night that you can't tell me tonight?
Mr. Parker, my suggestion is,
Just go to the meeting.
I would go.
I would go to the meeting and I would ask every question that you possibly can. You guys said citizens have every right to know
Yeah,
what's going on or what they think might be coming in. As of right now, we have no We do not
Yeah.
know what's coming.
I understand.
We do understand that there's the Oregon Economic Development Foundation is trying to see if there is interest to sell the land or purchase the land for a big chunk of property.
I appreciate that they're considering us to give us an option to get out of there before it becomes something that we don't want to be there
Mhm.
and stuck there. You know, I appreciate
Right.
that. It's just, it's hard to make a decision about what you're gonna do
In 2 months.
and not know why you're really making that decision. Because as you guys all know, I've spent, since I've got the letter, driving around Oregon. I don't want to leave Oregon. I like Oregon. So I've driven every square mile out here. There's nothing for sale. Hardly at all. I have 2 acres, a brick ranch house, 2 pole barns, and a pond. You're not going to get it in Oregon right now. You know, I've been all the way to Bowling Green. There's nothing out there comparable. So I have to make a decision in 2 months, and I don't even know, maybe I'll just stay at my house and just put a pile of dirt behind me, you know, so I can't see it. And I'll be happy maybe. That's what I want to make the best decision for myself.
Absolutely.
And I can't make that not knowing. So hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming. I'm just
I know
not coming here to
I-
complain.
Absolutely.
You know,
People can say they understand, but we can only try to understand
Right.
what you go through. And I do understand, but you yourself were here when the zoning to advanced manufacturing happened. And there was a lot of folks that said they would like that option of being bought out.
Right.
And we were trying to see to it that did.
right, no,
it did.
I appreciate that,
And
but I don't,
this whole disclosure thing, when we had people interested out in the Bury Road area,
Mhm.
I personally myself went to the people's house, told every single thing I knew, spent 4 or 5 hours at each of their places.
Right.
And I got shellacked with saying I was trying to keep secrets from them, which I couldn't give them any more information
well, you
than I
know,
did.
I would appreciate it is every time you drive by my house, heck, you don't even wave at me.
Yeah.
But I wish one time you would stop and say, hey, man, you're in the middle of the industrial zone. You know, we're trying to do something here.
Yeah.
You know, you might, but how could I sell my house and not tell who's going to buy it when the first thing I say is, because I'll have to disclose that to them.
Mhm.
Say, hey, you know, they're going to build something in my backyard. I don't know what it's going to be, but do you want to buy it? You know, and so, you know, it's 2 sides, you know, and nobody is telling us anything to make a good decision for myself. And I get the part about if too many people know about it, it ruins the deal. I understand all that. But, you know, somebody could have said, hey, there's a really big, you know, we got a chance of getting something big. You know, it's going to be in your backyard. We're going to give you the opportunity to maybe get out of here before it explodes on you. You know, if they build it and then your property is worth nothing, you might want to go now. This, you know, just give us a little heads up. You know, I mean, we're in a bad spot. You know, and
I've been
pretty
at-
soon it's going to get down there by Eagles Landing and you're not going to like it.
No, I know.
You know what I'm saying?
I already
So,
hear it. I
it's-
hear it.
I
You'd be
mean, you're
amazed
gonna
at
have to
stuff I
drive
hear.
by whatever it is every day
Yeah.
to go to your house.
I hear
You
it
know, and
constantly.
I understand you have a job to do but I have to look out for myself
And you should.
too.
That's why
And
I would
that's why I'm here.
say that I would go to any meeting that existed, whether you reheard it, you might hear one thing,
Right.
something that, and anytime their appraisal comes in at the end, you can represent yourself in what you would sell for. So I think just knowing how that process works to get options actually signed, so it gives you the option
Right.
to leave if you choose. There are limitations too. It's not a carte blanche ticket, but like I said, I thought I was doing the right thing when I was out in the southeast corner to try to let everybody know what was going on that were the property owners. And it was a long shot. It was always a long shot to get that proposal or that possibility of that plan. But nevertheless, I did go and and disclose really everything.
Yeah.
And I was,
Well,
critiqued
that's- that's all they're asking
being,
for.
for actually, not being transparent. I couldn't have been more transparent. No one does. They said, you know, when Furby said, when I said I would do that, I would do it myself. I have to face those people. So you're crazy. To go out and tell the people. I mean, I can't do that to them. I did go out and tell them, and they disclosed everything, and I was charged with lack of transparency,
Well,
which
Thank you, Mr.
all
Parker.
right, thank you.
At this time, we're going to continue on with,
I just signed the paper to sign in.
yes, but
Clarence Kroll. I have property at 460 North Lollendorf, Oregon, Ohio, 43616. I mean, I don't know if it was him or not, but you guys put across the street, you guys put them autoneum buildings up. I was never notified of that. I'm not notified of this letter. I don't get no notification what you guys are doing by my house. You got Capital Crane around the corner. Then you got that new warehouse you put up there. And then that chemical plant you put on the corner. It's like you're boxing us in to make my property value go down. What do I do about that?
Mayor,
when someone purchases property that's already zoned for what they're putting in,
But it was-
they don't
The
have.
farmer had the land. We let zone, but if you're gonna put all them warehouses up, shouldn't you notify the people? Or, I mean, let us know that, you know, the building, the factories are interested, and then you put the electric plant in kind of in the backyard. I mean, then you guys talking about doubling the size of it? Is that true, too?
There was a proposal for a second plant. I don't know if that'll ever happen, but there was a
Mhm.
proposal for that. If they were to come into property that was zoned for it, they could do it without asking permission.
And then people in the neighborhood don't need no notification of what's going up?
No.
Huh.
We, as long as if there's any zoning change, then the people are notified
I know we
and are
zone
required to be notified.
agricultural, and I don't know there's a thing that we want to change us into heavy industrial. I don't remember that. I've owned the property for 40-something years. I mean, I hear these people talking about, everybody on Wind Road getting notifications of things. I haven't got any, you know, and that's my thing.
The people that got notified were ones that they had interest in purchasing their property.
Mhm.
And so they wouldn't notify, they won't have a meeting with people that they're not considering buying their property because they just want to talk to those people.
Well, you said from Lollendorf to Wynn, Corduroy north, and I'm on North Lollendorf, I'm north of Corduroy.
I think it's from,
You got from, ahead, I'm
what's the
sorry.
drive? It is from Blue Heron Drive to Wynn, on the north side of Corduroy.
there you go,
And-
like boxing us back in again. 'Cause that goes behind the property and come back around that other place.
But that property is all zoned already, industrial.
Part of it is.
Yeah.
So, okay. I just, like, know why, you know, you're talking about, and then nobody on Lollendorf got involved in it. You're stating, you didn't say that Blue Heron Drive, you said from Lollendorf to Wynn, north of Corduroy.
All the way-
East of Lollendorf, west of Wynn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Wallenzeck.
thank you, Mr. President. Can you, the residents that got letters, or the landowners that got letters, went from Blue Heron Drive on Lollendorf
To Wynn,
to Wynn,
correct.
and then
North side.
the north side. No, that would be.
That's the north side of
Yeah.
Corduroy, north side of Corduroy. from
North side
Blue
of
Heron
Corduroy.
To
Yep,
Wynn.
And this gentleman is across from Autoneum. Where do you live?
I live on North Lollendorf, right across from the warehouses that you guys put up for that
Auto-
museum.
Okay, so, so his property should have been notified.
No,
No?
no, he's not one that was in the area. I think it's from Blue Heron Drive. I'm pretty sure.
That's not,
Yeah.
that's right.
Uh,
The letter says west of Wynn, east of Lollendorf, north of Corduroy.
It is east of, but it's not all of them east. From
That's
what I
not it
gathered,
says. I
I think it
mean,
was Blue
and here I
Heron.
just feel that you guys are just making our property go down to two, make it look like shit. Excuse my language.
Mm.
Pardon me? 460 North Lollendorf. Not counting the building in the front, I'm the fourth house, we're only one house on one side of the street.
So are you on the, sir, are you on the east side?
I'm on
Or
the east side.
You're on the east,
Yes,
the
sir.
northeast side
Yep.
of Lollendorf.
Mr. Gold, did you get a letter?
No, sir, I didn't.
Okay, all right. So, and do you know if any neighbors did?
Not that I know of.
Okay.
Got one that's out of town because of winter time and, and they got a couple new people I haven't talked to yet.
Okay, all right. Well, I've met you years ago, and that was for a water line, I think. They were putting in for
Yep,
Spartan.
Yep.
And
just
I know,
bring it there.
and I know at that time, there were a lot of people on Lollendorf that were expecting to be bought at some point in years
But that's when
past.
you come out when he said that Worthington Steel. I heard a different story why they left the town, but I won't say that.
In my time here, 27 years, and I just know people on Lollendorf, a lot of residents on Lollendorf were always expecting to be bought at some point. And a lot of those things failed because things didn't happen. I think, and we've talked about getting leads for multiple development. I think now is an actual doing what's right, trying to buy these residential properties so they're not boxed in. I'm surprised you didn't get a letter. I was thinking you would have gotten one.
Would you like, we'll
I
take,
could possibly be interested,
Yeah, all
yes,
right.
sir. I
I mean,
mean,
you're,
it
you're,
wouldn't be just
you're,
me. I mean, I'm talking for the rest of, I don't.
well, I'm glad you're here
Yeah,
because
no.
Must
we
be from
can,
Wynn Road.
you're,
I don't know how many of them live on Lollendorf.
we can
You know.
try to get that information and see if we can get you. We can
Yeah.
see a contact. Because,
you're-
yeah, we're out to try to make the best of the situation, not the worst.
right. I think the people on Lollendorf have been more subject to the industrial development than the people on Wynn, and that's
Yeah,
no
'cause I
offense
mean,
to
when you have
people
to
here
shut
on
down
Wynn.
there, I
but-
could barely get in and out of the driveway certain times of the day. And it's, the truck traffic goes on crazy. And I know it's starting to probably pick up on Wynn Road also.
So
We'll look at,
No,
we'll look at
it's-
that and then, and
it's a good
try
thing,
to
Mr.
get
Roll, that
get
you're.
your response. Leave a,
If you don't mind, after we get done with delegations.
Yes.
I can walk you back in my.
Well, you can go
office,
down
give
and
you
do it.
contact information.
Well,
you can do that now even.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get that and then try to
I mean,
see if we can.
okay, so that'd be fine. I'd like to know what's going on. I mean, so we've been left we feel like we've been out of the loop and all we're getting is boxed in because you're building all this shit around us. Excuse my language again. And it's just pathetic. You're making our property go downhill now. Like one fellow said, who wants to buy it? You look out the front door, used to be a Ackerman's farm,
Mhm.
farmland. Now we got buildings to look at. Right on the corner, you got this plant here that's making chemicals. You got a warehouse you put here, Capital Crane sitting here. And then, now you got the plant, your energy plant down the end and,
The luxury we have here is because, and it might only be if we're able to land this fairly large, what we believe is a fairly large deal,
Understandable.
we would have the ability to try to add properties like yours into this versus smaller ones, we just wouldn't, so I think, like Mr. Roman said, if this could be the time to see if we can add that to the proposal.
I don't know where y'all live at, but it's gotta come where I live at. the
Oh, I know.
property. And what you're looking at, I know you sure as hell, excuse me again, have you guys wouldn't wanna live there
Yeah,
because of what you're looking at and what you gotta put up with.
I do drive through there and by there, quite regularly. I live in Eagles Landing, so I go through there. That's one of my regular courses of travel. So I'm aware, somewhat aware of it. Of course, not aware of all the
Right,
heartaches you face.
right. Okay,
So,
all right,
okay, thank you.
We can talk afterwards.
all right, thank you.
Thank you. At this time, we're going to start the our regular meeting. We have 3 public hearings that we have to go through first. If any of you folks, please feel free, you can stay, but if you would like to get up and leave at this time, you can, or if you want to stay for the meeting, you're also more than welcome. I also missed our people in attendance. We have Ms. Rawson, who is our clerk of council, Mayor Safarian. We have Mr. Major, who is our city administrator, Ms. Purpura, who's our city law director. Mr. Paul Roman is the public service director, and over at the other table, we have Mr. Nick Roman, who is the finance director. Mr. Began, who is our police chief, Mr. Spangler, who is our assistant police chief, and we have Mr. O'Brien, who is our fire chief. So with that being said, we're gonna start the public hearings here. We're just gonna have all 3 of them. We'll open the public hearing meeting at 8:01. And the first public hearing is a renewal application for an agricultural district for David A. Dryer for 2.62 acres located at 1301 Bury Road, 3.045 acres located at 1333 Bury Road, 5.112 acres located at 0 Bury Road, and 0.028 acres located at 1343 Bury Road. Is there anybody in here tonight that is here in favor of the public hearing? Would you like to come up and say anything, or? Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here in opposing? Seeing and hearing none, let's, we'll.
Close the public hearing.
You have to close them after each one.
Yes.
We'll close the public hearing here at 8:02. I'm gonna have Ms. Rawson read,
Wait a minute, assign it, ordinance number.
it'll be assigned ordinance number 43 of 2024. If Ms. Rawson, if you would please read that into the record.
Approving inclusion of a certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by David A. Dryer into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Make a motion.
Mr. Drake?
Go ahead, Ms. Powell.
Oh, Ms. Paula?
I move for passage of ordinance 43 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Walczak, second, and it was approved by Ms. Paula. Would you please take a roll of council?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Walczak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 43 of 2024 passed with 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will open up the public hearing at 8:04. A renewal application for an agricultural district for Douglas M. and Mary K. Nelson for 18.95 acres located at 0 Seaman Road. Anybody here to speak in favor? Anybody here to oppose? We will close the public hearing at 8:05. And we'll assign item 44 of 2024 as ordinance 44 of 2024. Ms. Rawson, would you please read that into the record?
Approving inclusion of certain lands situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Douglas M. and Mary K. Nelson into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 44 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Walczak. It was approved by Ms. Paula. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll call of council for passage?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Walczak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 44 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will open up the public hearing for the last one, 806. It's a renewal application for an agricultural district for Thomas N. and Luann S. Schuffenecker for 17.306 acres located at 4638 Pickle Road and 7.827 acres located at 4664 Pickle Road. Council. Or is there anybody here, I'm sorry, anybody here to speak for? Hearing none. Anybody here to speak against the agricultural? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing at 8:07. And we will assign item 45 of 2024 as ordinance 45 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Approving inclusion of certain land situated in the city of Oregon, Ohio, owned by Thomas N. and Luann S. Schuffenecker into an agricultural district for a 5-year period and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 45 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake. Approved by Ms. Pauloff, second by Mr. Drake. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll call of council?
Mrs. Pauloff,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander,
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack.
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 45 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. Now we're going to start with our items for passage. These are all items that were talked about last week, and we are going to move to the mayor or city administrator, Joe Major, for item 28.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
we will stand pat on how we presented each of them. We have no change for any of these items that are on here. If you have if any questions up, we will certainly answer them, but we do not have anything to add for any of the items that are left on the agenda tonight.
Okay. Council, are you okay with just moving forward with them? Thank you. Okay, we're gonna assign item 28, 2024 as ordinance 28 of 2024. And ask Ms. Rawson to please read that into the record.
Revising the codified ordinances of the city of Oregon by adopting current replacement pages, authorizing payment of $3,634.96 to the Walter H. Drain Company, 525 Vine Street, Suite 310, Cincinnati, Ohio, and declaring an emergency.
Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 28 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Mrs. Pauloff, second by Mr. Wallensack. Ms. Rawson, would you please read take a roll of council for passage?
Mrs. Pauloff,
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 2028 of 2024 passed 5 yeas, 0 nay as an emergency measure. We'll move to item 29 of 2024. Council, any questions? We are going to assign item 29 of 2024 as ordinance 29 of 2024 as an emergency measure and have Ms. Rawson read that into record.
Accepting the bid of the Shelley Company, 1700 Fostoria Avenue, Suite 200, P.O. Box 3100, Findlay, Ohio, for furnishing labor, materials, and equipment for the LUC-CR 180 2.26 Corduroy Road and Wynn Roads resurfacing project, ODOT PID 118110, authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to enter into a contract with said contractor and declaring an emergency.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Pauloff.
I move for passage of ordinance 29 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Drake. It was Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Drake. Ms. Rawson, would you please take the roll of council on passage?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes,
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
thank you. Ordinance 2029 to 24 passed 5 yeas, 0 nays, and declaring it as an emergency. We will move to item 30. And any questions, council? We're assign ordinance item 30 of 2024 as ordinance 30 of 2024 and as an emergency measure. Council? We will have Ms. Rawson please read that into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, director of public service, and finance director to sign change order number 1 final with Mosher Construction, Inc., 122 South Wilson Avenue, Fremont, Ohio, in an amount of a net contract addition of $149,927.96 due to additional work related to the Oregon Town Center Phase 1 project and declaring an emergency.
Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. President.
Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance number 30 of 2024 as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wallensack, second by Mrs. Paula. Read it into the, Ms. Rawson, would you please read it into the record?
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Let it be known that item 30 or ordinance 30 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move on to item 31 of 2024. Council, any questions? Hearing none, I will assign ordinance item 31 of 2024 as ordinance 31 of 2024 as an emergency measure. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage?
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to enter into an agreement with Brian and Rebecca Cornell for the acquisition of a permanent drainage easement and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I move for passage of ordinance number 31 of 2024 as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wallensack, second by Ms. Paula. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage?
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 31 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move on to item 32 of 2024. I will, if there's no questions about it, I will assign it ordinance 32 of 2024 as an emergency measure. Ms. Rawson, would you please read it into the record?
An ordinance authorizing the city administrator to submit an application to Water Supply Revolving Loan Account, WSRLA, funds available through the Ohio Environmental Protection Agency, OEPA, Division of Environmental and Financial Assistance, and authorizing the mayor and finance director to enter into loan agreements with the OEPA for all such funds and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, council.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Wallensack.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of ordinance number 32 of 2024 as an emergency measure.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Paula. Mr. Wallensack made the moved it. Ms. Paula seconded. Please take a roll call, Ms. Rawson of council.
Mr. Wallensack?
Yes.
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Thank you. Let it be known it's passed 5 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move on to item 34 of 2024. If there's nothing further from council, I will assign it ordinance 34 of 2024 as an emergency measure and have Ms. Rawson please read that into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with Demetria Jacobs Engineering, Inc., 1101 Research Drive, Toledo, Ohio, to provide professional engineering services and technical support for the Oregon water and wastewater treatment plants, supervisory control and data acquisition CADA systems on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Council.
Mr. President.
Yes, Mr. Wallenzeck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of ordinance number 34 of 2024 as an emergency measure.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Mr. Wallenzeck, second by Mrs. Pauloff. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage of ordinance 34 of 2024?
Mr. Wallenzeck,
Yes.
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves.
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Thank you. Let it be known that ordinance 34 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move on to item 35 of 2024. And if there aren't any questions, I will assign it ordinance 35 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with Solomon Diving, Inc., 6450 Stadler Road, Monroe, Michigan, for diving inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council,
Mr. President,
Mrs. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 35 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenzeck. Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Wallenzeck. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage of ordinance 35?
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Thank you. Let it be known that ordinance 35 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move to item 36 of 2024. If there aren't any questions, I'll assign it ordinance 36 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with Bowser Warner, 1419 Miami Street, Toledo, Ohio, for materials and laboratory testing, engineering, and construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council,
Mr. President. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Did you?
No, go ahead.
Mrs. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move for passage of ordinance 36 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Drake. Thank you. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage of ordinance 36?
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander,
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes.
Let it be known, ordinance 36 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item 37 of 2024. And if there's no questions, I will assign it ordinance 37 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with CT Consultants, Inc., 1915 North 12th Street, Toledo, Ohio, for materials and laboratory testing, engineering, and environmental services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council,
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 37 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you. Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Wallenzeck. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council for passage of ordinance 37?
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck.
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Let it be known, ordinance 37 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move to item 38 of 2024. Is there any, if there's not any questions about it, I will assign it item or ordinance 38 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with TTL Testing and Drilling Services, 1915 North 12th Street, Toledo, Ohio, for construction materials inspection and laboratory testing services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Ms. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 38 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Wallenzeck. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage of ordinance 38?
Mrs. Paula,
Yes.
Mr. Wallenzeck,
Yes.
Mr. Drake,
Yes.
Mr. Reeves,
Yes.
Mr. Salander.
Yes.
Let it be known, item or ordinance 38 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move down to item 39 of 2024. If there aren't any questions, I will assign it ordinance 39 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with DGL Consulting Engineers, LLC, 3455 Briarfield Boulevard, Suite E, Maumee, Ohio, to provide professional engineering, survey, and inspection services for various traffic analyses and projects on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council, what's your pleasure?
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 39 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallendank, moved by Ms. Paula. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallendak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 39 passed 5 yeas, 0 nays. We'll move to item 40 of 2024. If there's no questions, I'll assign that ordinance 40 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with Quality Control Inspection, Inc., QCI, Inc., 9500 Midwest Avenue, Garfield Heights, Ohio, to provide construction inspection services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 40 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallendank, moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Wallendank. Ms. Rawson, would you please read take a roll of council for passage?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallendak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Thank you. Let it be known that ordinance 40 of 2024 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. We will move to item 41 of 2024. Are there any questions? If not, I'm going to assign it ordinance 41 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with West Erie Realty Solutions LTD, 323 Lafayette Street, Toledo, Ohio, to provide professional right-of-way appraisal and real estate acquisition services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mrs. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 41 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Paula, second by Mr. Wallendank. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council for passage of ordinance 41?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Wallendak?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Let it be known that ordinance 41 passes 5 yeas, 0 nays. And our last item is item 42 of 2024. I will assign it ordinance 42 of 2024 and ask Ms. Rawson to please read it into the record.
Authorizing the mayor, finance director, and director of public service to issue purchase orders with Davy Resource Group, 333 Martinell Drive, Kent, Ohio, for invasive species vegetation control and management services on an as-needed basis and declaring an emergency.
Thank you, Ms. Rawson. Council.
Mr. President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
I move for passage of ordinance 42 of 2024 and declaring an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
Second by Mr. Drake, moved by Ms. Paula. Ms. Rawson, would you please take a roll of council on passage?
Mrs. Paula?
Yes.
Mr. Drake?
Yes.
Mr. Reeves?
Yes.
Mr. Salander?
Yes.
Mr. Wallendak?
Yes.
Thank you. That takes care of our items for tonight. At this time, we'll go to the mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I really have nothing to report other than you guys sit here through each of these ordinances that we pass and it says, and we declare an emergency and wondered, you didn't see no lights or sirens on any of them, but it merely means if we pass something as an emergency, it goes into effect as soon as the mayor signs it. Otherwise, it takes 30 days. And that would conclude my report. Oh, sorry, I guess I do have
Do you need
something.
glass?
Huh? I'll struggle through it. Council, I do have a retirement resignation to accept, and I would ask council's concurrence in the accepting of the retirement resignation of James E. Rindell, effective August 14th, 2023. And I'd ask council's concurrence in the express the wishes of Jimmy Rindell to retire. No, it's 2023. Or 20, yeah, it should be 2024. That was
Is
a
that
guess
correct?
and a typo.
It is 2024, Mr. O'Brien.
Hey. Jimmy Rindell retiring to 2023 or 2024?
It would have been 2023. He did give me the letter pretty late.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Just getting to you.
Yeah.
now, But the date was
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr.
Counsel.
President,
Yes, Ms. Paula.
first of all, I don't think he was on there for 5 years. I think he's been on longer than that.
I think that's.
Mr.
No,
President.
that's his son, I think.
Correct.
His
This would
son.
be Jimmy Rindell, Jr.
Oh, Junior.
Yeah,
Okay, thank
yep.
you, thank you, thank you. I move to accept the mayor's acceptance for the retirement of James E. Rindell, effective August 14th, 2023.
Thank you, Mrs. Paula.
Second.
Second by Mr. Wallenczak. Mayor, council approves.
Thank you. That concludes my report.
Mr. Major,
No report, Mr. President.
thank you. Ms. Purpura,
No report, Mr. President.
thank you. Mr. Roman,
No report, Mr. President.
it's usually me next, but I'll go last. We'll go, Ms. Paula.
Thank you, Mr. President. This evening at 6 o'clock, we had our Finance Safety Committee meeting in regards to discussing the potential funding for the safety services levy. I think it was a very informative meeting. Once
Yeah.
everyone gets all their numbers and information together, we will be meeting again at another Finance Safety Committee meeting on Monday, March 11th at 6 o'clock. And that ends my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Paula. Mr. Wallenczak,
No report this evening, Mr. President.
thank you. Mr. Salander,
No report, Mr. President. Just one quick comment. That number 41 was a tough one. I don't know. It was a lose-lose. But anyway, on that, I just want to also stress that I'm very much not against growth. That was just, again, I just had an issue with how information was received. Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Salander. Mr. Drake,
No report. I do want to mention I went to St. Paul's on Saturday. Their Rita's Soups. I believe it's charity. They don't charge money. They take donations. And when I showed up, there's about probably 15 to 20 people there. So I don't know if they're meeting there again. I think it's on their webpage, somebody was telling me, but Mr. McDougal was happy that some of us stopped out. That's all I have.
thank you, Mr. Drake. And from my standing committee, we had a brief half-hour meeting this afternoon at 5:30 about the update of the winter and spring sports and things that are happening. They're going to have a dedication. I think it was April 22nd. That's what they're shooting for the restroom, new restroom concession stand and the press box. So if you guys are around, that'd be great if you can be there. I mean, very informative and looking like we might possibly in the future do some kayaks out at our new pond area out here, along with our fishing. So that's all I have for my committee. If there is nothing further, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Mr. President,
Mr. Salander.
motion to adjourn, please.
Thank you, Mr. Salander.
Second.
Second by Ms. Pauloff. Any objections? Meeting is adjourned. Thank you.